What is going on, everybody? I have something to tell all you. You are being lied to by every single video on YouTube about the fishing pole trap. It is not something for the novice. They all totally ignore something which is screaming out very obviously, and they just ignore it because they don't want to either take the time to go down and explain it all, or they just don't know. I'm guessing it's the former rather than the latter, but I will be uncovering the truth in this video and explaining to you how to successfully deploy the fishing pole trap in all lines. More specifically, Night H2. No one covers it. No one talks about it. They brush right over it and think you are ignorant. So the fishing pole trap, as is known, knight f3, white castles, knight g4, white pushes up h3, black pushes h5, white pawn takes knight on g4, black pawn takes white pawn on g4 and hits the knight. They all say, oh, the knight's got to go back. It's the only move. And then, the queen can come out, and then they can try pushing the pawn, but then you just push G. They can sacrifice the queen. You take the queen, and then no matter what they do, you get the checkmate. Hurrah, yeah, easy, sweet. Have fun. Well, let me ask you something. Everyone that's made a video, what exactly do you do if the knight moves to h2? I'm waiting. Oh, look at that at the bottom. Checkmate in 12? Wait a minute. I thought it was easy and game over. How is it checkmate in 12 if it. Oh, yeah, because you guys don't talk about that possibility. You just think everyone's fucking stupid. Well, here, let me show you how to actually win when the knight goes to h2. Queen comes to h4. White's best try is f4, and I don't have any notes. I'm doing this all from the head because I've discussed this and showed people so many times that it's second nature to me. And there's many forks. It's not just one line of checkmate in 12. It's very fucking confusing. But here we go. Once f4 is pushed, g3 has to be pushed. White's best move now is moving the rook to f3. Once the rook is moved, that's when the queen can come in and take the knight on h2 and kick the king. Once the king jumps to f1, we need to bring in the knight. Once the knight gets brought in, the king is going to jump over again to e1. Even from this position that you have to get to, doesn't look easy, does it? Yeah, it's because everyone just wants to play you for a fool and make you think it's easy. So from here, there's two options. Once the king captures g2, white can either bring the bishop to f1 or it can bring the rook to f1. We'll cover the bishop first. If the bishop comes to f1, the knight now has to capture the rook with check, forcing the queen to capture. Once the queen captures, your queen can capture their queen. And there's two different moves that white can do to prolong it the most. I believe it's checkmate in 5 from here. They can either push d3 or d4. Regardless of what they push, queen comes to f2 with check, forcing the king to d1. Then we capture the bishop, forcing the king to d2. Once the king comes to d2, we can bring out the bishop for a check. It doesn't matter if they block with the pawn or the knight. I guess we'll cover both just to be thorough. We can bring in the rook now. And the only move that the king has is e3. And there's a cool looking checkmate. I guess E captures F would be a checkmate when D4 is pushed. If instead of the knight comes out, the pawn comes out, same thing. We come in with the rook, but now the king can come to E3 and the pawn still works. E captures F. But if D3 is pushed instead, you check, they move over, they check, they move up, we come in here. Now, if they block with the pawn, you got to be careful, because when you come in with the check, the king runs to E3, the pawn move doesn't work. You actually have to come in with the queen now and put the queen on F2 for the checkmate, because the pawn trick doesn't work, because then they would have an exit out the dark square diagonal, the G1 through A7 diagonal. So that would be the bishop to F1 line. Well, what happens if they move the rook to F1? I'm glad you asked. You have to bring your rook to the corner immediately. Their best effort from here is bringing in the queen to E2. Their bishop's covering the queen, so you just can't capture their queen with your queen because you need it. You need to capture their queen with your knight. And they're going to capture your rook in the corner with their rook. You don't capture their rook, though. You need to save your knight because we need it. So once we bring the knight back to D4, there's another option of moves for them. Not only can they bring the bishop to D3, they can bring the knight to C3. Both of them prolong it the most. If they bring the knight out, you capture the rook. They have to block with the bishop. And that's when you march up the pawn. Their best chance is pushing up the D pawn. If they push up, or if they can run. If they run, you just capture the bishop with a promotion. Then they have either E3 or G3. If they go E3, then you have queen F3. The H queen to F3. And if they run to G3, you got the H queen to H3. And if they don't run with the king and they decide to push the D pawn for another escape square, that's when you capture the bishop with a check. And when they go to that escape square, you take the F queen and push it to E1, checkmate. If they don't bring the knight to C3 and they bring the bishop to D3, you capture the rook. Now they have to block with the bishop, and you're bringing the queen to E4 with a check. You follow? Their best prolonging move is moving the king to D1. That's when you move the queen from there to F3 checking. If they move the queen to E1, you have knight C2 checkmate. If they block with the bishop, you have queen capture bishop, E2 checkmate. Those are all the lines covering all the possibilities of how to force that checkmate in 12 once they play knight H2. And that is why everyone just plays you for a fool and brushes it off. Oh, that's the fishing pole trap, it's easy checkmate. Haha, go get him, Tiger. Bullshit. I'm calling all of them out. They can all explain themselves. And I'm going to ask you, go ahead and do yourself the favor. Look right now. Find one video where they explain what I just explained to you, and I will make a new video formally apologizing. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope that you learned something with this video. I appreciate you.